Step away from the gate, now! The security guard's hand slammed against Marcus Williams' chest, shoving him backward. A black man in a faded work hoodie standing at the gates of Preston Academy, the most elite private school in the state. His crime trying to pick up his own daughter on her 8th birthday. Parents only, the guard sneered. No solicitors, no exceptions. Marcus didn't shout, didn't argue. He simply looked at the man's badge and memorized the name. What nobody knew, not the guard, not the PTA president rushing over, not the principal already dialing police, was that Marcus Williams had written the check that built the very ground they stood on. And in exactly 14 minutes, every single one of them would learn a lesson no amount of tuition could buy. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. And if you believe in dignity over judgment, hit that subscribe button. These stories need to be told. Now back to Marcus and the moment everything changed. The parking lot was already emptying when Marcus Williams pulled his truck into the visitor space. He was late. He knew he was late. The construction site had held him 3 hours past his shift, and no amount of apologizing to the foreman had gotten him out faster. But today was Lily's birthday. Today, nothing else mattered. He checked his phone one more time. The text from his daughter's teacher glowed on the screen. Lily keeps asking when you're coming. She's so excited. Marcus smiled. 8 years old. His little girl was 8 years old today. He stepped out of the truck, still wearing his work clothes. The hoodie was clean, he'd changed out of his dusty one in the truck, but it was worn faded at the elbows, the kind of clothing that told a story of long hours and honest labor. He didn't think twice about it. Why would he? This was his daughter's school. The school he'd chosen specifically because of its diversity initiatives, its scholarship programs, its promise to treat every child with equal respect, regardless of background. He'd believed in that promise. He walked toward the main gate where a handful of parents still lingered chatting in small groups beside their luxury SUVs. A few glanced his way. Most looked away just as quickly. Marcus was used to that. The sideways looks, the subtle shifting of purses, the way conversations paused when he walked past. 37 years of being a black man in America had taught him to notice these things without reacting to them. He kept walking. The security booth sat just inside the main gate, a small structure with tinted windows and a uniformed guard standing outside. The man was new. Marcus didn't recognize him. Probably hired within the last month since the school's annual security review. Afternoon, Marcus said, approaching with an easy nod. I'm here to pick up my daughter, Lily Williams, 3rd grade. The guard didn't move. He was a thick man, mid-40s with a crew cut, and the kind of posture that suggested former military or law enforcement. His eyes traveled slowly over Marcus the hoodie, the work boots the truck parked in the visitor lot. ID, the guard said. Not a question. A demand. Marcus reached for his wallet. Sure thing. He pulled out his driver's license and handed it over. The guard studied it for a long moment, then looked back at Marcus with an expression that had shifted from neutral to suspicious. This doesn't match our pickup list. Marcus frowned. That's not possible. I'm her father. I'm on every list this school has. System says otherwise. The guard handed back the license without looking at it. You'll need to contact the front office during business hours to update your information. Business hours ended 20 minutes ago. Then you'll have to come back tomorrow. Marcus felt the first flicker of something hot in his chest. He pushed it down. He'd learned long ago that anger, however justified, rarely helped men who looked like him. Look, he said, keeping his voice calm. My daughter is inside that building waiting for me. It's her birthday. I'm not leaving without her. The guard's hand moved to his belt, not to his radio, to the space beside it where a set of handcuffs hung. Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the gate. I'm her father. Step back from the gate, now. Marcus didn't move. Call the front office. Call her teacher. Call anyone you need to call. But I'm not leaving my daughter. The guard's jaw tightened. He reached for his radio, pressed the button, and spoke without breaking eye contact with Marcus. This is Gate 1. I've got a situation. Male individual refusing to leave premises, requesting backup. Marcus stared at him. A situation, I'm picking up my kid. You're trespassing. On what grounds? On the grounds that I said so. The words hung in the air between them, ugly and familiar. Marcus had heard variations of this conversation his entire life. Different settings, different faces, but always the same undercurrent. The assumption of guilt. The presumption of threat. The absolute certainty that a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time must be up to something. He'd learned to navigate these moments, to de-escalate, to make himself smaller, less threatening, more palatable to people who had already decided what he was before he'd said a single word. But today was his daughter's birthday, and he was tired. "What's your name?" Marcus asked quietly. The guard blinked. "Excuse me. Your name. The one on your badge. I want to make sure I remember it." Something flickered in the guard's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe. Or the first hint of recognition that this encounter might not go the way he'd planned. Before he could respond, a woman's voice cut through the tension. "Gerald, what's going on here?" Marcus turned to see a woman approaching from the parking lot. She was tall, blonde, dressed in the kind of casual elegance that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her expression was a mixture of concern and authority, the look of someone accustomed to being in charge. "Mrs. Patterson," the guard said, straightening slightly. "Just handling a trespasser." The woman Patterson looked at Marcus with undisguised suspicion. "Trespasser? He claims he's here to pick up a student, but he's not on the approved list." "I'm her father," Marcus said. "Lily Williams, 3rd grade." Patterson's eyes narrowed. "I know every parent in the 3rd grade. I'm the PTA president. And I've never seen you before." "I work long hours. My mother usually handles pickup." "Convenient." "It's the truth." Patterson pulled out her phone, her movements sharp and deliberate. "I'm calling Principal Morrison. We take child safety very seriously at Preston Academy." "I would hope so," Marcus said, "since my child is one of the ones you're supposedly protecting." "We don't know that, do we?" Patterson's voice dripped with condescension. "Anyone can claim to be a parent. Anyone can learn a child's name. That's exactly why we have security protocols. Protocols that include not letting fathers pick up their own daughters. Protocols that include verifying identity, which you haven't done. I showed my ID. An ID isn't proof of parenthood. It's proof you have a driver's license." She pressed the phone to her ear. "Barbara?" "Yes, it's Christine Patterson. We have a situation at the front gate. A man claiming to be a parent, but Gerald says he's not on any list. Can you send Principal Morrison out immediately?" "Yes. Yes, I'll hold him here." She ended the call and fixed Marcus with a stare that was equal parts triumph and contempt. "Principal Morrison will be here shortly. Until then, I suggest you stay exactly where you are." Marcus looked at her, then at the guard, then at the small crowd of parents that had begun to gather near the parking lot, phones already in hand, watching the scene unfold. "My daughter is inside that building," he said slowly. "She's been waiting for me for over an hour. It's her 8th birthday. The only thing I want to do is take her home, give her the present I've been saving for 3 months, and watch her blow out her candles." His voice didn't waver, didn't rise, but something in it made Patterson shift uncomfortably. "She's probably scared right now," Marcus continued. "Wondering why her daddy hasn't come yet. Wondering if something happened to me. That's what's going on in there while you're out here treating me like a criminal." Patterson recovered quickly. "We're protecting her. That's our job. From her own father? From anyone who can't prove they belong here. And what would that proof look like exactly?" Marcus asked. What would I have to show you right now to make you believe I'm who I say I am? Patterson hesitated. The guard shifted his weight. The crowd leaned in, sensing the question had no easy answer. Because I'm starting to think, Marcus said quietly, that there's nothing I could show you, nothing I could say, nothing I could wear or drive or present that would make you see me as a father instead of a threat. That's not... I think you made your decision the moment you saw me. Before I opened my mouth, before I showed my ID, you looked at me and decided I didn't belong here. That's ridiculous. Is it? Patterson's face flushed. I am not going to stand here and be accused of what, Mrs. Patterson? The voice came from behind them. Marcus turned to see an older woman approaching from the main building. She wore a tailored suit and the pinched expression of someone who had just been pulled away from something important. Principal Morrison. Gerald called about a disturbance, Morrison said, her eyes landing on Marcus with immediate assessment. What seems to be the problem? This man, Patterson said, pointing at Marcus, is trying to access the school without proper authorization. He claims to be a parent, but he's not on any pickup list, and he's refusing to leave. Morrison studied Marcus with the practiced neutrality of someone who had dealt with 100 difficult situations. But beneath that neutrality, Marcus could see the calculation happening. The assessment of threat level based on appearance, demeanor, clothing, based on skin. Sir, Morrison said carefully, can you tell me which student you're here for? Lily Williams, 3rd grade, Ms. Henderson's class. And you are? Her father, Marcus Williams. Do you have any documentation? Custody papers? Perhaps a letter from the child's mother? Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Her mother passed away 4 years ago. Morrison's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then the professional mask returned. I'm sorry to hear that, but you understand we have to be thorough. There have been incidents. Custody disputes, estranged relatives, even cases of attempted abduction. We can't be too careful. I understand that. What I don't understand is why my ID isn't enough. Why my name on the registration isn't enough. Why my word as her father isn't enough. The system doesn't show. Then the system is wrong. The words came out harder than Marcus intended. He saw the guard's hand move toward his cuffs again, saw Patterson reach for her phone. And in that moment, a small voice cut through everything. Daddy! Marcus spun toward the sound. Lily was pressed against the window of the main building, her small hands flat against the glass tears streaming down her face. A teacher stood behind her trying to pull her away, but Lily wouldn't move. Daddy! Daddy! I'm here! Every parent in the parking lot turned to look. Every phone rose a little higher. And Marcus felt something break inside him. That's my daughter, he said, his voice thick. That little girl right there crying at the window. That's my baby. And you're keeping me from her. Morrison's face tightened. Sir, please lower your voice. She can see me. She's calling for me. And you're standing here asking me for documentation. We have procedures. Your procedures have an 8-year-old child in tears on her birthday because you won't let her father through the gate. Sir, if you don't calm down. I am calm. The words echoed across the parking lot. Marcus took a breath, then another. He could feel the weight of every eye on him. The judgment, the fear, the way the narrative was already being shaped by people who had decided what this moment meant before it even happened. Black man. Angry. Threatening. Never mind that his daughter was sobbing behind glass. Never mind that he had every right to be there. Never mind that not a single person had actually checked whether he was telling the truth. He was the threat. He was always the threat. Call the police, Patterson said to the guard, her voice shaking with something that might have been fear or might have been satisfaction. He's clearly unstable. I'm her father, Marcus said, but the words sounded hollow now. Useless. We don't know that, Morrison said. And until we do, we have to prioritize student safety. By traumatizing my daughter. By following protocol. The guard was already on his radio. Gate 1 to dispatch. We need police assistance at Preston Academy. Hostile individual potential threat to students. Yes, black male approximately 6 feet wearing a gray hoodie. Marcus heard every word. Felt them land like blows. Gray hoodie, black male, hostile. This was how it happened. This was how the story got told. Not with facts, but with assumptions. Not with truth, but with fear. And his daughter was watching. Lily was still at the window, her face red and streaked with tears, her small fists pounding against the glass, as if she could break through by sheer force of will. "Daddy! Daddy! Why won't they let you in?" The teacher finally managed to pull her away from the window. Lily screamed, the sound muffled, but still audible, still heartbreaking. Marcus closed his eyes. He had promised himself after Michelle died that he would always be there for Lily. That she would never feel abandoned. That no matter how hard things got, she would always know her father loved her, would always come for her, would always keep her safe. And now she was being dragged away from a window crying for him, while he stood helpless on the other side of a gate. "Sir?" He opened his eyes. A young woman had appeared beside Morrison, a teacher judging by the lanyard around her neck. She was young, maybe late 20s, with kind eyes and a nervous expression. "Sir, I'm Ms. Henderson, Lily's teacher." Marcus felt a spark of hope. "You know me. You've seen me at conferences at Henderson hesitated, glancing at Morrison. "I've spoken with your mother. She usually handles pickup." "My mother's in the hospital. Hip surgery. That's why I'm here." "I didn't know that. I'm sorry." "Then you can confirm I'm her father. You have emergency contacts, family records." "The records are in the system," Morrison cut in, "and the system shows no Marcus Williams authorized for pickup." Henderson frowned. "That doesn't seem right. I'm sure I've seen his name." "The system doesn't lie, Ms. Henderson." But Henderson had already pulled out her tablet. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, scrolling through what Marcus assumed were student records. Her face changed. "Principal Morrison," she said slowly, "there's something you should see." Morrison's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" Henderson turned the tablet around. Marcus couldn't see the screen from where he stood, but he could see the effect it had on Morrison. The principal's face went pale, then red, then a shade of white he'd never seen on a human being before. That can't be." "It's right there in the donor records," Henderson said quietly. "Cross-referenced with student enrollment." Patterson pushed forward, craning her neck to see. "What? What is it?" Morrison didn't answer. She was staring at the screen like it had just told her the world was ending. "Mrs. Patterson." Henderson said, her voice steady now, almost calm. "You know the science building, the one they dedicated 3 years ago?" "Of course. The Williams Science Center. What about it?" "And the scholarship fund, the one that provides full tuition for 15 students every year. The Williams Foundation grant. Yes, I know. My husband is on the board selection committee." "What does any of this have to do with—" Henderson turned the tablet so Patterson could see. The PTA president's mouth fell open. "That's not possible," she whispered. "It's right there in black and white," Henderson said. "Marcus Williams, sole trustee of the Williams Foundation, primary donor for the Williams Science Center, the Williams Library, and the Williams Performing Arts Wing. Total contributions to Preston Academy over the past 5 years, $12.7 million. The parking lot went silent. Every phone was recording. Every eye was on Marcus. And Marcus, standing there in his worn hoodie and work boots, finally understood why the universe had made him late today. This moment wasn't an accident. It was a reckoning. Patterson's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against the pavement. She didn't reach for it. "You're—" she started, then stopped. Started again. "But you look like—" "Like what?" Marcus asked quietly. She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The words died in her throat because there was no way to finish that sentence that didn't reveal exactly what she had been thinking from the moment she first saw him. The guard Gerald was backing away slowly, his hand no longer anywhere near his cuffs. His face had the look of a man watching his career flash before his eyes. Principal Morrison stood frozen, the tablet still in her hands, her carefully constructed authority crumbling like wet paper. And somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. The police were coming, called because a black man in a gray hoodie had tried to pick up his daughter from school. A black man who had built half the buildings they stood in. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I need to make a call," he said. No one tried to stop him. He dialed the number from memory. 3 rings. Then a voice answered crisp and professional, even at this hour. "Williams Foundation, this is David Chen speaking." "David, it's Marcus." The voice on the other end shifted immediately. "Marcus, I thought you were picking up Lily. Is everything okay?" "No." Marcus kept his voice level, but the single word carried enough weight to silence the entire parking lot. "I need you to contact the Board of Trustees. Emergency session. Tonight." "Tonight, Marcus, what's happening?" "I'm standing outside Preston Academy. I've been denied entry to pick up my daughter. I've been accused of trespassing, called a threat, and the police are on their way." Silence on the other end. "I'm sorry," David said slowly. "Did you say you've been denied entry to Preston Academy?" "That's exactly what I said. The school you built." "The very same." Another pause. When David spoke again, his voice had changed. The professional warmth was gone, replaced by something harder. Something that sounded like barely contained fury. "I'm calling the board now. And Marcus. Yes. Document everything. Already being done." Marcus glanced at the crowd of parents, their phones still raised their faces, a mixture of shock and fascination. "I have about 40 witnesses with cameras." "Good. Don't let anyone leave. I'll have our legal team there within the hour." The call ended. Marcus pocketed his phone and turned back to face the people who moments ago had been ready to have him arrested. Principal Morrison still hadn't moved. She was staring at the tablet in Henderson's hands like it might spontaneously combust if she looked away. "There has to be a mistake," she said finally. "The Williams Foundation the donor is. I've seen photos. At the galas. The dedication ceremonies." "You've seen photos of my foundation's board members," Marcus said. "I don't attend galas. I don't do ceremonies. I work. That's what I do. That's who I am." "But I'm what?" Morrison's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You're not what I expected," she managed. "No," Marcus agreed. "I never am." The sirens were closer now. 2 blocks away, maybe less. The sound cut through the evening air like a knife, drawing every eye toward the street. Patterson finally found her voice. It came out shrill, defensive. "This doesn't change anything. You still approached the gate without proper identification. Gerald was following protocol. We were all following protocol. We had no way of knowing what?" Marcus turned to face her fully. "That a black man in a hoodie might actually belong somewhere. That he might have earned his place. That he might have more right to be here than any of you. That's not fair." "Fair?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me tell you about fair, Mrs. Patterson. Fair is my daughter right now being held in some classroom crying because the people who are supposed to educate her decided her father looked like a criminal. Fair is her asking herself at 8 years old why her daddy wasn't good enough to walk through a gate. Fair is the lesson she's learning right now about what this world thinks of people who look like us." Patterson's face crumpled. "I was trying to protect the children." "You were trying to protect your assumptions. There's a difference." The police cruiser rounded the corner, lights flashing, but siren now silent. It pulled into the parking lot slowly, deliberately, coming to a stop about 20 feet from where Marcus stood. 2 officers emerged. One was older, gray at the temples, with the weary posture of someone who had seen too much and expected the worst. The other was younger, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that were already scanning the crowd, assessing the situation. The older officer approached first. "We got a call about a disturbance," he said, his hand resting casually on his belt. Not on his weapon. Not yet. "Someone want to tell me what's going on?" Gerald, the security guard, stepped forward, eager to regain some semblance of control. "Officer, this individual," he pointed at Marcus, "attempted to access the school without authorization. When asked to leave, he became hostile. We were concerned for student safety." The officer looked at Marcus, looked at his hoodie, his work boots, his dark skin. "That true?" he asked. "No," Marcus said calmly. "I came to pick up my daughter. I showed my ID. I was denied entry. I asked them to verify my identity through the school's records. Instead, they called you." "He refused to leave," Gerald insisted. "He was aggressive." "I raised my voice," Marcus corrected, "because my 8-year-old daughter was at the window crying, watching her father be treated like a criminal. I think that's a reasonable response." The younger officer had moved closer to the crowd. He was looking at the phones, the recording lights, the faces of people who were witnessing something they knew they'd be talking about for a long time. "A lot of cameras out here," he observed. "Yes," Marcus said. "There are." The older officer's expression shifted slightly. The calculation behind his eyes was visible, the awareness that whatever happened next was going to be documented, shared, scrutinized. "Do you have ID?" he asked Marcus. "Already showed it. They said it wasn't enough." "Show me." Marcus pulled out his wallet again, extracted his license, and handed it over. The officer studied it for a long moment, then looked up. "Marcus Williams." "That's right. This says you live on Thornwood Drive. That's about 15 minutes from here." "Correct. And your daughter goes to this school. 3rd grade. Ms. Henderson's class. Her name is Lily. She's 8 years old today. It's her birthday. I was supposed to take her home, give her a present, let her blow out her candles. Instead, I've spent the last half hour being interrogated because apparently I don't look like a parent." The officer handed back the license. His eyes moved to Principal Morrison, who was still clutching Henderson's tablet like a lifeline. "Ma'am, is this man's daughter enrolled here?" Morrison's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yes." "Is he listed as her parent?" The system showed." "Ma'am, simple question. Is this man the child's father?" Henderson stepped forward. "He is. I've just verified it. He's not only her father, he's also the primary donor to this school. The science building, the library, the performing arts wing, they all carry his name." The officer blinked. His partner stopped mid-step. Gerald made a small choking sound. "I'm sorry," the older officer said slowly. "Did you say donor?" $12.7 million over 5 years, Henderson said. "It's all in the school's records. Anyone with access could have checked. No one did." The officer looked at Marcus with new eyes. Not better eyes exactly. Marcus had learned long ago that wealth didn't erase prejudice. It just changed its flavor, but different. More cautious. "Sir," he said, and the word came out almost respectful. "Do you want to file a report?" "Against who?" Marcus asked. "Anyone you feel has wronged you here. We can take statements, document the incident." "The incident is already documented." Marcus gestured at the crowd, the phones, the dozens of recording lights that had been running since the moment he arrived. "By the time you get back to your precinct, this will probably be on the internet. By tomorrow morning, it'll be on the news." The officer's jaw tightened. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but—" "I'm not upset. I'm tired. There's a difference." Marcus turned away from the officer and looked at Principal Morrison. "I want my daughter. Now." Morrison nodded quickly, almost frantically. "Of course. Yes, Ms. Henderson, could you?" "I'll get her myself," Marcus said. "Sir, I don't think—" "I'll get her myself," he repeated, and something in his voice made it clear this wasn't a request. He walked toward the gate. Gerald stepped aside so quickly he nearly tripped over his own feet. The gate was still locked. Marcus stopped in front of the security panel and looked at it for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone again and opened an app. "What are you doing?" Morrison asked, her voice edged with panic. "Accessing the system." "You can't just— This security system was installed 3 years ago." Marcus said, his fingers moving across the screen. "I know because I paid for it. I approved the vendor. I signed off on the specs. And I made sure I had administrative access in case of emergencies." He tapped one final button. The gate clicked, swung open. Marcus walked through without looking back. Behind him, the crowd erupted in murmurs. He heard Patterson's voice, high and defensive, trying to explain to someone that she couldn't have known that anyone would have made the same assumption, that this wasn't about race. It was about safety. He didn't stop. He didn't turn. He walked through the front doors of Preston Academy, past the trophy cases and the donor plaques, one of which he noted with grim irony bore his own name, and down the hallway toward the third-grade wing. He could hear Lily before he saw her. She was crying. Not the loud, dramatic tears of a child throwing a tantrum, but the soft, hiccuping sobs of a little girl who had been scared and confused and was now exhausted from the weight of emotions she didn't fully understand. The classroom door was open. A teaching assistant sat beside Lily, rubbing her back, murmuring words of comfort that clearly weren't working. Marcus stopped in the doorway. "Lily." Her head snapped up. For a moment she just stared at him like she couldn't quite believe he was real. Then her face crumpled all over again, and she launched herself out of the chair and across the room. "Daddy!" She hit him at full speed, her small arms wrapping around his waist, her face burying itself in his stomach. He dropped to his knees and pulled her close, holding her tight, letting her cry into his shoulder. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. Daddy's here." "They wouldn't let you in," she sobbed. "I saw you, and I called and called, but they wouldn't let you in, and I thought— Shh. I know, but I'm here now. I came. I'll always come." "Why wouldn't they let you in? Daddy, did you do something wrong?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He pulled back just enough to look at her face, tear-streaked, confused, heartbroken. 8 years old. His baby girl. And she was asking if he had done something wrong, because that was the only explanation that made sense to her young mind. "No, sweetheart." He wiped her tears with his thumb. "Daddy didn't do anything wrong." Then why? How do you explain prejudice to a child? How do you tell your daughter that some people will look at her father, and see threat instead of humanity? How do you prepare her for a world that will judge her before she opens her mouth, dismiss her before she has a chance to prove herself? "Sometimes," Marcus said slowly, "people make mistakes. They think they know something, but they're wrong, and their mistakes hurt other people. But that's not fair." "No, it's not." "Are they going to say sorry?" Marcus looked at his daughter. Her eyes were wide earnest, still full of the belief that the world operated on simple rules, that wrong things got corrected, that people who made mistakes apologized, and everything went back to normal. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But right now that doesn't matter. Right now all that matters is that we're together." "Okay." She nodded, sniffling. "Now." He managed a smile. "I seem to remember that someone has a birthday today." A tiny smile broke through her tears. "Me." "You— Are you sure?" "Daddy?" She giggled, despite herself. "You know it's me." I don't know. You might have to prove it. Do you have ID?" The joke landed harder than he intended. Lily laughed, not understanding the reference, but Marcus felt the bitterness of it in his throat. He stood up, lifting her with him. She was getting too big to carry really 8 years old, all arms and legs. But today, he didn't care. Today, He needed to feel her weight in his arms, needed the physical proof that she was safe, that she was his, that no one could take her from him. "Let's go home," he said. "But my backpack, we'll get it tomorrow. And my birthday cupcakes, Ms. Henderson was going to let me give them out, but then everything got crazy, and I never got to. We'll bring more tomorrow. Better ones." She considered this. "Can they be chocolate?" "They can be whatever you want. Chocolate with sprinkles." "Done." He carried her back down the hallway past the plaques and the trophies and the framed photographs of smiling children who had been educated in buildings that bore his name. When he reached the front entrance, a small crowd had gathered just inside the doors. Teachers, staff members, a few parents who had managed to get through the gate. They parted as he approached, their faces a mixture of shame and curiosity. Principal Morrison stood near the entrance, her earlier composure completely shattered. "Mr. Williams," she said, stepping forward. I need to apologize. What happened today was inexcusable. If there's anything I can do, there is." Morrison's eyes lit with desperate hope. "Name it." "In approximately 45 minutes, the Board of Trustees is going to convene an emergency session. I suggest you be there. You'll want to hear what happens next." The hope drained from her face, replaced by something closer to dread. "Mr. Williams, please. I've dedicated my career to this school. I've worked here for 15 years. What happened today was a failure of protocol, not malice. If you would just let me explain." "You had a chance to explain," Marcus said. "You chose to call the police instead." He walked past her through the doors into the evening air. The crowd in the parking lot had grown. Word had spread. Apparently, the parent who had been denied entry was actually the school's biggest donor, and the story was too good not to witness. Cars lined the street. People stood on the sidewalk, phones still out, still recording. Marcus walked through them without speaking. He opened the passenger door of his truck, settled Lily into her car seat, and buckled her in. "Daddy." "Yes, baby." "Why are all those people looking at us?" He glanced at the crowd, at the cameras, at the faces of people who would go home tonight and tell this story to their families, their friends, their social media followers. "They're just curious," he said. "About what?" "About what happens when someone makes a big mistake." He closed her door and walked around to the driver's side. Patterson was waiting for him. She had composed herself somewhat. Her hair was smoothed, her expression arranged into something approaching contrition, but her eyes still held that desperate, calculating look of someone trying to figure out how to survive what was coming. "Mr. Williams?" Marcus stopped but didn't speak. "I want you to know," she said, her voice carefully modulated, "that I never meant for any of this to happen. I was trying to protect the children, all of them, including your daughter." "You were trying to protect your idea of what this school should look like," Marcus said. "Your idea of who belongs here. And my daughter didn't fit that idea. I didn't fit that idea. That's not—" "Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to give you some advice. Stop talking. Whatever you're about to say, whatever justification you're about to offer it, will only make things worse. Go home. Think about what happened today. Really think about it. And then ask yourself whether this is the first time you've looked at someone and decided they didn't belong, or just the first time you got caught." Her face went white. "I'm not a racist," she whispered. "I didn't say you were. I said you made assumptions, dangerous assumptions, the kind that get innocent people hurt, the kind that teach little girls that their fathers are criminals, the kind that have consequences." He paused. "Those consequences are coming, Mrs. Patterson. I suggest you prepare for them." He got into his truck, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, he watched Patterson standing alone, surrounded by people who were already stepping away from her, already distancing themselves from the woman who had become the face of something ugly. Lily was quiet in the back seat, her eyes drooping. The adrenaline was wearing off, and exhaustion was setting in. "Daddy." "Yes, baby." "Are you mad?" Marcus considered the question. Was he mad? He had been denied entry to a school he had built, accused of crimes he hadn't committed, treated like a threat by people who had never bothered to learn his name. His daughter had watched the whole thing, had seen her father humiliated, had absorbed lessons about the world that no 8-year-old should have to learn. Was he mad? "I'm disappointed," he said finally. "Those people made choices today, bad choices, and now they have to live with what those choices mean. Are they going to get in trouble?" Yes, a lot of trouble. Marcus thought about the board meeting, about the legal team David was already assembling, about the video footage that was probably already being shared across social media, about the news crews that would be calling by morning. "A lot of trouble," he confirmed. Lily was quiet for a moment, then in a small voice, "Good." They drove in silence after that. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and Lily's eyes finally closed. She fell asleep with her head tilted against the car seat, her breathing slow and steady. Marcus watched her in the mirror. His daughter. His whole world. The reason he worked 16-hour days and built buildings and created scholarships and tried every single day to make the world a little better than he'd found it. She would grow up eventually and learn more about that world. Learn that her father's money didn't protect him from suspicion. Learn that her own skin would invite judgment before she'd spoken a word. Learn that all the achievements in the world couldn't silence the voice that said, "You don't belong here." But not today. Today she would go home. She would blow out her candles. She would open her present and eat too much cake and fall asleep believing that her father was a hero. And tomorrow, Marcus would make sure that the people who had tried to take that from her understood exactly what they had done. His phone buzzed. A text from David Board assembled. "Legal team en route. Press inquiries already coming in. How do you want to handle this?" Marcus typed back with one hand. "I'll be there in 2 hours. Make sure everyone understands this isn't going to be quiet. They wanted a story about a threat. They're going to get a story about accountability." The response came immediately. "Understood." And Marcus. "I'm sorry this happened." Marcus didn't respond. He was done accepting apologies from people who weren't the ones who had wronged him. The house was quiet when they pulled into the driveway. Just Marcus and Lily, like it had been for 4 years since the cancer had taken Michelle, and left them alone in a world that suddenly felt much bigger and much colder. He carried Lily inside, put her to bed with her shoes still on, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. She looked peaceful now. The tears had dried, the fear had faded, and she was just a little girl again, dreaming whatever dreams 8-year-olds dream. "Happy birthday, baby," Marcus whispered. Then he closed the door, walked to his study, and began to prepare for war. The conference room on the 23rd floor had never felt smaller. Marcus arrived at exactly 8:15, still wearing his work hoodie, still carrying the weight of the day in his shoulders. He hadn't changed, hadn't showered, hadn't done anything except kiss his sleeping daughter's forehead and drive straight downtown. David Chen met him at the elevator. "They're all inside," David said, falling into step beside him. "All 7 board members. 3 of them tried to call in remotely, but I told them this required physical presence." "Good." The school sent representatives too. Principal Morrison, the head of security, and someone from their legal department. They arrived about 20 minutes ago. They looked terrified. They should. David hesitated. "Marcus, before you go in there, I need to know how far you want to take this." Marcus stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "I mean the Foundation's legal team has already identified at least 4 actionable claims. False imprisonment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil rights violations under Section 1983. We could bury that school in litigation for the next decade. And I need to know if that's what you want. Because once we start down that road, there's no turning back. It becomes public. It becomes ugly. It becomes the thing people remember when they hear your name." Marcus looked at his old friend. They had known each other since business school, back when Marcus was working 2 jobs to pay tuition, and David was the only person in their cohort who didn't look at him like he'd wandered into the wrong classroom. David, My daughter watched me get treated like a criminal today. She saw her father humiliated. She asked me if I had done something wrong." His voice caught slightly on the last word. "Do you understand what that means? What that does to a child?" "I understand." "Then you understand why this can't just go away. Why it can't be settled quietly with a check and a non-disclosure agreement. This has to mean something." David nodded slowly. "Then let's make it mean something." They walked into the conference room together. The board members were seated around a long mahogany table, their faces arranged in expressions of concern and sympathy that Marcus recognized as carefully rehearsed. These were powerful people, CEOs, investors, philanthropists, and they hadn't gotten where they were by showing their real thoughts too easily. At the far end of the table, clustered together like defendants awaiting sentencing, sat Principal Morrison, a gray-haired man Marcus didn't recognize, and a young woman in a sharp suit who was clearly the school's attorney. Morrison stood when Marcus entered. "Mr. Williams, I want to say again how deeply sorry." "Sit down," Marcus said. She sat. He took his place at the head of the table, not because it had been assigned to him, but because no one else would have dared to occupy it. David settled into the chair beside him, opening a leather portfolio filled with documents. "Let's begin," Marcus said. The chairman of the board, a silver-haired man named Richard Holbrook, cleared his throat. "Mr. Williams, I want to assure you that everyone in this room takes what happened today extremely seriously. We've already begun a preliminary review of the incident, and—" "I don't want a review," Marcus interrupted. "I want answers, starting with how a school that I have personally funded to the tune of $12 million managed to develop security protocols that treat black parents like criminals." Silence. The school's attorney leaned forward. "Mr. Williams, I'm Catherine Hayes, General Counsel for Preston Academy. I understand you're upset, and rightfully so. But I think it's important to note that the security officer who initiated today's incident was acting on established procedures that were designed to protect who exactly? To protect all students from potential threats." "And what made me a threat? Was it the ID I showed the name of my daughter, or was it something else?" Hayes hesitated. "I don't think anyone is suggesting." "I'm suggesting it." Marcus leaned forward. "I'm suggesting that I was stopped, questioned, and denied entry based on the color of my skin and the clothes I was wearing. I'm suggesting that if I had been white in a suit driving a BMW instead of a truck, none of this would have happened. And I'm suggesting that everyone at this table knows it." The room went very quiet. Morrison's hands were trembling. The gray-haired man, the head of security Marcus assumed, was staring at the table like he wished it would swallow him whole. One of the board members, a woman named Patricia Vance, whom Marcus had met at several charity functions, spoke up. "Marcus, no one is disputing that what happened was wrong. The question is how we move forward. What would justice look like to you?" "Justice?" Marcus turned the word over like it was something foreign. "Justice would look like my daughter not having to watch her father be handcuffed on her birthday. Justice would look like a school that teaches children about equality actually practicing it. Justice would look like accountability, not just for the security guard who stopped me, but for the systems and the culture that made him think stopping me was the right thing to do." "We're prepared to terminate the security officer immediately," Hayes offered. "Gerald." Marcus said the name flatly. "His name is Gerald, and firing him doesn't solve anything. He's not the disease, he's a symptom." "Then what do you want?" Marcus looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. "I want to know how this happened. Not the surface explanation, not he wasn't on the list or protocol requires verification. I want to know how a school that serves hundreds of black and brown children created an environment where their parents can be treated like suspects. I want to know who designed these protocols, who approved them, and who has been enforcing them. I want names. I want records. I want everything." Hayes exchanged a glance with Morrison. "Mr. Williams, some of what you're asking for involves confidential personnel matters." "I don't care." There are legal constraints. I have lawyers too, Ms. Hayes. Better ones, I suspect. And they've assured me that when a civil rights violation is documented on camera and broadcast to approximately... He looked at David. 2.3 million views as of 20 minutes ago, David supplied. Trending on 3 platforms. 2.3 million people, Marcus continued. The usual rules about confidentiality tend to become somewhat flexible. The color drained from Hayes's face. You're going to sue. I haven't decided yet. What I do know is that I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I'm not going to accept a quiet settlement and a photo op where everyone shakes hands and promises to do better. My daughter deserves more than that. Every child at that school deserves more than that. Richard Holbrook shifted uncomfortably. Marcus, we all want the same thing here. We want to make this right. Perhaps if we could discuss some concrete steps. Concrete steps. Marcus let out a short, humorless laugh. 3 years ago, when I gave this school $5 million to build a new science wing, I sat in a room very much like this one. Do you remember what I said? Holbrook frowned. I'm not sure I said that the money came with expectations. That I wanted to see real diversity, not just in the student body, but in the faculty, the administration, the way the school operates. I said that I would be watching, and that if I ever felt like my investment was being used to maintain the status quo instead of challenging it, there would be consequences. Marcus paused. Do you remember what you told me? Holbrook's face had gone red. Marcus, you told me not to worry. You told me Preston Academy was committed to equity and inclusion. You told me that my concerns were valid but overblown. You patted me on the shoulder and called me brother, and then went right back to running the same school you'd always run. That's not fair, isn't it? Marcus reached into David's portfolio and pulled out a sheet of paper. This is the demographic breakdown of Preston Academy's faculty for the past 5 years. Want to know how many black teachers you've hired in that time too? Out of 47 new hires. Want to know how many black administrators? 0. Want to know how many complaints about racial bias have been filed by parents? 11. Want to know how many resulted in disciplinary action? None. He laid the paper on the table. This is the school I've been funding. This is the environment I've been paying to maintain. And today, that environment produced a situation where my daughter had to watch her father be treated like a criminal while the people responsible told themselves they were just following protocol. Morrison stood up. Her voice was shaking, but she forced the words out anyway. Mr. Williams, I need to say something. Go ahead. I have worked at Preston Academy for 15 years. I have dedicated my career to that school, to those children. And yes, I have made mistakes. Today was a mistake, a terrible one. But I am not a racist. I don't have a racist bone in my body. When I saw you at that gate, I wasn't thinking about your skin color. I was thinking about student safety, about protocol, about all the things they train us to think about. And that's exactly the problem, Marcus said quietly. Morrison blinked. I don't understand. You didn't see my skin color. You didn't think about race. You just followed protocol. Marcus leaned back in his chair. But who wrote that protocol? Who decided what a threat looks like? Who trained you to respond with suspicion instead of curiosity? Who built a system where a black man showing ID and asking for his daughter triggers a call to the police? You didn't have to be racist. Principal Morrison, the system did it for you. All you had to do was follow the rules, and the rules took care of the rest. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. And the people who benefit from it get to walk around saying they don't have a racist bone in their body, while black fathers get handcuffs and their daughters get trauma. The room was silent. One of the board members, a younger man named James Chen, no relation to David, spoke up. What do you want us to do, Marcus, genuinely? Tell us what would make this right. Marcus looked at him. James was one of the few board members who had pushed back against the foundation's more conservative elements. He had argued for more aggressive diversity initiatives, for community partnerships, for the kind of systemic change that made the older members uncomfortable. I want a complete overhaul, Marcus said. New security protocols designed with input from parents of color. New training for all staff, not a 2-hour workshop, a comprehensive program that actually addresses implicit bias and its effects. I want an independent review of every complaint filed in the past 5 years, with real consequences for substantiated claims. And I want public accountability. Public? Hayes looked alarmed. Mr. Williams, surely you understand that. I understand that this story is already public. What happens next will be too. The only question is whether the school gets ahead of it or gets buried by it. Hayes started to respond, but Holbrook raised a hand to stop her. Marcus, he said slowly, everything you're asking for has merit. But you're talking about fundamental changes to how the school operates. Changes that would take years to implement. Changes that would face resistance from parents, from faculty, from the broader community. Changes that might not be possible. Then maybe the school needs different leadership. The words landed like a bomb. Morrison's face went white. Hayes's pen stopped moving. Even David looked surprised. I'm sorry, Holbrook said. I said maybe the school needs different leadership, different board members, different priorities, people who are willing to do the hard work of actual change instead of writing checks and patting themselves on the back. Marcus, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious. Marcus stood up. Let me be clear about something. I didn't build that science wing because I wanted my name on a building. I didn't fund those scholarships because I wanted tax deductions. I did it because I believed in what this school could be. A place where children like my daughter could learn and grow without being treated as less than. A place where excellence and equity weren't competing values, but complementary ones. He walked toward the window, looking out at the city lights below. Today, that belief was tested. Today, I found out that the school I've invested in financially, emotionally, spiritually, is the same school that taught my daughter her father doesn't belong, and I have to decide what to do with that information. What are you saying? Holbrook asked. Marcus turned back to face the room. I'm saying that the Williams Foundation's relationship with Preston Academy is under review. All current funding is suspended, effective immediately. Future donations are contingent on demonstrable, verifiable progress toward the changes I've outlined. And if those changes don't happen, if I see more excuses, more delays, more "we're working on it," without results, the Foundation will withdraw its support entirely and redirect those resources to institutions that are actually willing to do the work. The room erupted. Several board members started talking at once. Hayes was furiously scribbling notes. Morrison had buried her face in her hands. Only Patricia Vance remained calm. She waited for the noise to die down, then spoke. Marcus, I think I speak for everyone when I say that we hear you. We understand the gravity of what happened and the changes you're demanding. But I have to ask, is there anything we can do tonight, right now, that would demonstrate our commitment to making this right? Marcus considered the question. There is one thing. Name it. Mrs. Patterson, the PTA president. The one who called me a fraud and told me I didn't belong. What's her current relationship with the school? Hayes checked her notes. She chairs the Parent Advisory Committee. She's also the lead organizer for the annual fundraising gala. Her family has donated significantly over the years. Not as significantly as mine. No, not as significantly as yours. I want her removed. From the advisory committee, from the gala organization, from any position of authority within the school community. Tonight. Hayes hesitated. That might be difficult. She has supporters. Her husband is on the board selection committee for the Williams Foundation grant, Marcus finished. I know, he won't be after tonight. Mr. Williams. I'm not asking Ms. Hayes. I'm telling you what needs to happen. That woman stood in front of my daughter's school and called me a criminal. She called the police on a father picking up his child. And she did it with complete confidence that she was right because she looked at me and saw exactly what she expected to see. Marcus's voice hardened. She is not going to continue representing the parent community at a school my foundation supports. That's not negotiable. Hayes looked at Holbrook. Holbrook looked at the other board members. A silent conversation happened in the space of a few seconds. "It will be done," Holbrook said finally. "Tonight." "Tonight." Marcus nodded. It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough. But it was a start. "One more thing," he said. "Yes. The security guard. Gerald. I don't want him fired." Everyone stared at him. Morrison spoke first. "I'm sorry, I thought you said. I want him retrained. I want him to spend the next 6 months learning about the communities his job requires him to protect. I want him to meet with families of color, hear their experiences, understand what it's like to be treated as a suspect in spaces where you have every right to be. And at the end of that 6 months, if he hasn't demonstrated genuine growth, then he can be let go. But I won't have his family lose their income because he was following a broken system." The room was silent. James Chen was the first to speak. "That's remarkably generous, Marcus." "It's not generous. It's practical. Firing one guard doesn't fix anything. It just lets everyone else pretend the problem has been solved. I'm not interested in pretending. I'm interested in change." Marcus gathered his coat. "You have my conditions. The board can vote tonight on whether to accept them. David will stay to answer any questions. I have to get home to my daughter." He was almost to the door when Morrison's voice stopped him. "Mr. Williams." He turned. She was standing, her face streaked with tears she had tried and failed to hide. "I just want you to know. I'm sorry. Not for the school, not for the board, for me, for what I did and what I failed to do. Your daughter is a wonderful girl. She's bright and kind, and she talks about you constantly. How hard you work, how much you love her, how you always keep your promises." Her voice broke. "I should have listened to her. When she was at that window crying, telling us you were her father, I should have listened. And I didn't. I let protocol override common sense, and your daughter paid the price." Marcus stood very still. "I can't undo what happened," Morrison continued. "I can't give you back that moment. But I can promise you that I will spend the rest of my career making sure no other child has to go through what Lily went through today. That's not enough. I know it's not enough, but it's all I have." For a long moment, Marcus didn't respond. Then he said, "My mother used to tell me that apologies are like seeds. They don't mean anything until they grow into something. You've planted a seed tonight, Principal Morrison. I'll be watching to see what it becomes." He walked out of the conference room without looking back. David caught up with him at the elevator. "That was unexpected," David said. "The part about the security guard. Was it? Most people in your position would want blood. Most people in my position don't have an 8-year-old daughter who asks them if the bad people are going to say sorry." Marcus pressed the elevator button. "Lily believes that people can change, that when you do something wrong you make it right. I've spent her whole life trying to teach her that. I'm not about to prove myself a hypocrite. And if they don't follow through, if the board takes your money and gives you nothing but empty promises—" Marcus stepped into the elevator. "Then I burn it all down." The doors closed. The drive home felt longer than usual. Marcus kept his phone on silent, but he could see the notifications piling up on the screen. News outlets, former colleagues, numbers he didn't recognize. The story had grown beyond the parking lot, beyond the boardroom, beyond anything he could control. He didn't care about any of it. All he cared about was the little girl sleeping in her bed, who would wake up tomorrow and have to face a world that had shown her its ugliest face on the day she turned 8 years old. When he got home, he didn't go to his study. He didn't check his email. He walked straight to Lily's room and sat in the chair by her bed, watching her breathe. She was still wearing her school clothes. He hadn't even taken her shoes off before putting her to bed. Some father he was. Carefully, gently, he untied her sneakers and slipped them off. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. "I'm sorry, baby," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." He stayed there for a long time, listening to her breathe, thinking about Michelle. What would she have done? How would she have handled this? Michelle had always been the strong one, the one who knew how to turn pain into purpose, how to transform anger into action. She would have had a plan. She would have known exactly what to say, what to do, how to make this moment into something meaningful. Marcus just felt tired. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, with a sigh, he pulled it out. David Board voted unanimously to accept your conditions. Patterson removed effective immediately. Press release going out at 6 a.m. You should get some sleep. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, "Thank you. Talk tomorrow." He turned off the phone and went to bed. Sleep didn't come easy. The morning arrived too quickly. Marcus was in the kitchen making pancakes when he heard Lily's footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the doorway, still in yesterday's clothes, her hair a tangled mess, her eyes puffy from crying. "Daddy, morning birthday girl." He kept his voice light. "I'm making chocolate chip pancakes, your favorite." She didn't move. "Is it still my birthday?" "What do you mean?" "Yesterday was supposed to be my birthday. But then everything got bad, so I didn't really have a birthday. Does that mean I'm still 7? Marcus set down the spatula and crossed the kitchen to kneel in front of her. "Sweetheart, you are absolutely definitely 100% 8 years old. What happened yesterday doesn't change that. Nothing can change that." "But I didn't blow out my candles." "We can do candles today. And I didn't open my present. We can do presents today too. And I didn't give out my cupcakes at school." Marcus hesitated. "Do you want to go to school today?" Lily's face crumpled. "I don't know. I don't want to see those people again. The mean ones. What if they're still there?" "They won't bother you again, I promise." "How do you know?" "Because Daddy took care of it." "How?" Marcus searched for the right words. How do you explain institutional accountability to an 8-year-old? How do you describe the machinery of power and the way it can be redirected when someone with enough leverage decides to push? You know how when someone does something wrong at school, they have to face consequences, like when Tommy Mitchell pushed you off the swing and he had to sit out recess for a week. Lily nodded. Well, the people who were mean to Daddy yesterday, they have consequences too. Grown-up consequences. They have to answer for what they did, and they have to make changes so it doesn't happen again. What kind of changes? Big ones. Important ones. The kind of changes that will help make sure other daddies don't get treated the way I was treated. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. So something good came out of something bad. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Yeah, baby. Something good came out of something bad. Mommy used to say that. Remember, she said that's how God works. He takes the bad stuff and turns it into something good, but you have to let him. Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug, holding her tight. I remember, he said. I remember. The phone started ringing at 7:30. First it was the local news wanting a statement, then the national outlets, then the cable networks. By 8 o'clock, Marcus had declined 14 interview requests and blocked 6 numbers. David called at 8:15. You need to see this, he said without preamble. See what? Turn on Channel 4, or check Twitter, or literally any website with a news section. Marcus found the remote and turned on the television. His face filled the screen. In footage that has now been viewed over 15 million times, shows Williams, a prominent local philanthropist and the school's largest donor, being detained by security and questioned by police while attempting to pick up his daughter. He changed the channel. Questions are being raised about racial profiling in affluent communities as parents and advocates demand accountability. Another channel. Christine Patterson, the PTA president seen in the video calling for Williams' arrest, has been removed from all leadership positions at Preston Academy. A spokesperson for the school declined to comment on whether further action would be taken. Marcus turned off the television. It's everywhere, David said through the phone. I can see that. The foundation's been getting calls all morning. Other schools, other institutions, they want to know if something like this could happen to them. They're scared. Good. They should be scared. Marcus, I know you're angry, but this is an opportunity, a real opportunity. What happened to you yesterday could become the catalyst for systemic change across the entire education sector, if you're willing to be the face of it. I don't want to be the face of anything. I want to make pancakes for my daughter. I understand, but, David, I appreciate everything you're doing. I do. But right now, I need to be a father. That's more important than any press conference or policy initiative. Lily needs me here present, not on television talking about what happened to us. There was a pause on the other end. Okay, David said finally. I'll handle things from here. Take as much time as you need. Thank you. And Marcus, what you did last night at the board meeting, it mattered. It really mattered. Marcus hung up without responding. Lily was waiting for him in the kitchen, standing on a step stool and trying to flip a pancake that was rapidly burning. I'm helping, she announced proudly. Marcus managed a smile. I can see that. Let me show you the trick. They made pancakes together badly, laughing at the misshapen results. They ate at the kitchen table with syrup dripping everywhere and didn't worry about the mess. They opened Lily's birthday present, a telescope she'd been asking for since she saw a documentary about the moon landing, and spent an hour figuring out how to assemble it. For those few hours, the world outside didn't exist, but the world has a way of intruding. At 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Marcus opened it to find Principal Morrison standing on his porch. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair was disheveled, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd had on at the board meeting. She hadn't slept either. Mr. Williams, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now. You're not wrong. I'll only take a few minutes, I promise. There's something I need to say, and I couldn't do it over the phone. Marcus considered closing the door. He was tired. He had his daughter to think about. He didn't owe this woman anything, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. 5 minutes, he said. He stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him so Lily wouldn't hear. Morrison took a breath. Last night after you left, the board voted to accept all your conditions. Every single one. I know David Chen told you, but I wanted you to hear it from me. The changes are happening. The security overhaul, the bias training, the independent review, all of it. Starting immediately. I know. What you don't know is what happened after the vote. Morrison's voice wavered. 3 board members called for my resignation. They said I was a liability, that the school couldn't move forward with me in charge, that the only way to restore public trust was to make an example of someone, and that someone should be me. Marcus watched her face, waiting. Richard Holbrook defended me. He said that firing me would be too easy, that it would let everyone else off the hook. He said that the real test of leadership was whether I could learn from this and do better. She laughed bitterly. I don't know if that's what you wanted. I don't know if you'd rather see me gone. But I wanted you to know that I'm not running away. I'm staying. And I'm going to spend every day for the rest of my career trying to become the person I should have been yesterday. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know, and because... She hesitated. Because I want to ask your permission for something. My permission? I want to meet with the parents of color at our school, all of them. Not a group email or a form letter face-to-face meetings. I want to hear their experiences, the times they felt dismissed or disrespected or treated like they didn't belong. I want to understand what we've been doing wrong and how we can do better. But I won't do it without your blessing. You're the one who was hurt. You get to decide if I deserve a chance to make it right. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You know what my mother said to me when I told her what happened? Morrison shook her head. She said, Baby, you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. But you also can't help people you've given up on. She's been saying that to me my whole life. Every time I wanted to write someone off, every time I wanted to burn a bridge instead of building one, she reminded me that change doesn't happen when we turn our backs on each other. It happens when we stay in the room and do the hard work. So you'll let me try? I'll let you try. But I'm warning you, Principal Morrison, those parents have stories. Hard stories. Stories that are going to make you uncomfortable. Stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the school you've been running. And if you can't handle that, if you can't sit in that discomfort and really listen, then you'll do more harm than good. I understand. I don't think you do. Not yet. But maybe you will. Marcus reached for the door handle. My 5 minutes are up. One more thing. He waited. Lily, is she okay? The question hit Marcus somewhere deep. It was the first time anyone from the school had asked about his daughter without trying to minimize what had happened or deflect responsibility. She's resilient, like her mother. But she's got questions I don't know how to answer. She's going to carry this with her for a long time. If there's anything I can do? There is. When she comes back to school, whenever that is, treat her like every other kid. Don't make her special. Don't make her a symbol. Just let her be a third grader who likes chocolate cupcakes and wants to learn about the solar system. That's all I'm asking. Morrison nodded, tears streaming down her face. I can do that. Good. Now go home and get some sleep. You look terrible. Despite everything, Morrison almost smiled. Thank you, Mr. Williams. She walked down the porch steps and got into her car. Marcus watched her drive away, then went back inside to find his daughter waiting in the hallway. Who was that? Someone who made a mistake and wanted to apologize. Did you forgive them? Marcus knelt down to Lily's level. I'm working on it. The rest of the day passed quietly. They set up the telescope in the backyard and looked at the clouds. They baked a lopsided birthday cake with too much frosting and not enough batter. They sang Happy Birthday 3 times because Lily couldn't decide which version she liked best. At 7 o'clock, just as Lily was blowing out her candles for real. This time, the doorbell rang again. Marcus opened it to find Gerald standing on his porch. The security guard looked smaller than he had the day before. Diminished somehow, like the uniform had been holding him together, and without it, he was just a middle-aged man with fear in his eyes. Mr. Williams, I know I don't have any right to be here. Marcus didn't respond. I got a call this morning, from the school. They told me I wasn't being fired. They told me I was being put on some kind of training program instead. They said it was your idea. It was. Gerald's voice broke. Why? After what I did, after how I treated you, why would you want to help me? I don't want to help you. I want to help the next person you encounter. The next black father picking up his kid. The next mother who doesn't look the way you expect a parent to look, the next person you have the power to hurt. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for them. Gerald nodded slowly. That's fair. That's more than fair. I need you to understand something, Gerald. What happened yesterday, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a breakdown in protocol. It was exactly what happens when people like you have power over people like me, and nobody's watching. You saw a black man, and you saw a threat. That was a choice. Maybe not a conscious one, but a choice nonetheless. I know. Do you? Because if you go through this training program, just checking boxes, just saying the right things, so you can get your job back, nothing changes. You'll be the same person you were yesterday, with the same assumptions, making the same decisions. And the next time there's no camera, no witnesses, no billionaire donor to call you out, you'll do the same thing again. Gerald's hands were shaking. I don't want to be that person, Mr. Williams. I really don't. I went home last night and I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing your daughter at that window. I kept hearing her crying for you. And I thought about my own kids, my own girls, and what if someone treated them that way? What if someone looked at their mother and decided she was a threat? I couldn't live with myself. Then don't. Don't live with the person you were yesterday. Become someone different. But know this, becoming someone different isn't about a training program or a certificate or an apology. It's about a lifetime of choices. Every day, every interaction, choosing to see people instead of assumptions. choosing curiosity over fear, choosing to question the voice in your head that says someone doesn't belong. I don't know if I can do that. Neither do I. But I'm giving you the chance to find out. Marcus stepped back. Now go home to your family. And the next time you see a man at a gate, maybe ask his name before you reach for the cuffs. Gerald stood there for a moment longer, struggling with something. Thank you, he finally said. I know you don't believe me, and I know I haven't earned it, but thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve. You're right. I don't believe you. Not yet. Marcus held the door handle. But I believe in who you could become. That's going to have to be enough. He closed the door. Lily was standing behind him, her face covered in birthday cake frosting. Was that the man from yesterday, the one who was mean? Yes. What did he want? He wanted to say sorry. Did he mean it? Marcus thought about the question. I think he wants to mean it. That's something. Lily considered this with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could muster. Mommy said sorry doesn't fix everything. She said you have to show you're sorry with your actions, not just your words. Your mother was right about a lot of things. Do you think he'll show it? With his actions. Marcus picked up his daughter cake frosting and all and held her close. I hope so, baby. I really hope so. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and meetings and decisions. The school released its statement. Patterson released hers, claiming she had been misunderstood, and that her actions were taken out of concern for child safety. Nobody believed her. Her husband resigned from the board selection committee. 2 of her closest friends in the parent community quietly distanced themselves. The video continued to spread. 15 million views became 20, then 30, then 50. Marcus stopped counting. Interview requests poured in. Oprah's people called. So did CNN, MSNBC, NPR, The New York Times, The Washington Post, and about 100 outlets he'd never heard of. He turned them all down. He did, however, accept one invitation. On Thursday, 3 days after the incident, Marcus drove to a community center in the part of town where he'd grown up. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Same cramped houses, same cracked sidewalks, same feeling that the rest of the world had forgotten it existed. He walked into the main hall where about 50 parents were waiting. Black parents, brown parents, parents who had heard about what happened and wanted to meet the man who had stood his ground. A woman in the front row stood up. Mr. Williams, thank you for coming. My name is Denise Crawford. I have 3 kids at Preston Academy on scholarship. Your scholarship. Nice to meet you, Ms. Crawford. I want you to know something. What happened to you, it happens to us all the time, not always at school. At the grocery store, at the doctor's office, at our own front doors. We get looked at like we don't belong, like we're out of place, like we're one wrong move away from handcuffs. And nobody ever sees it. Nobody ever cares. But you made them see it. You made them care. And I want to thank you for that. A chorus of agreement rippled through the room. Marcus felt the weight of their eyes on him. These were his people, not in the abstract way that politicians talked about the community, but in the real, tangible way of shared experience. Shared pain, shared struggle. I didn't do anything special, he said. I just refused to disappear. A man near the back spoke up. That's exactly what makes it special. Most of us disappear. We swallow it. We tell ourselves it's not worth the fight. We teach our kids to keep their heads down and not make waves. But you stood there and you didn't move. You let them show who they really were. And now the whole world knows. The whole world will forget, Marcus said. That's how these things go. There's outrage for a week, maybe 2, and then something else happens and everyone moves on. The question is what we do with this moment while people are still paying attention. What do you want us to do? Marcus looked around the room. I want you to tell your stories, not to me, to the school. Principal Morrison is setting up meetings with parents of color. She wants to hear what you've experienced. The times you felt dismissed, the times your children were treated differently, the times you knew something was wrong but couldn't prove it. I want you to show up to those meetings and tell the truth. All of it, even the parts that are hard to say. A woman in the middle of the room raised her hand. Will it actually change anything? I don't know. But silence definitely won't. Silence is what they're counting on. Silence is what lets them pretend the problem is isolated individual, a one-time mistake instead of a pattern. The only way to break that pattern is to make it undeniable. And that means speaking up even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Denise Crawford stood up again. I'll do it. I'll tell my story. About the time a teacher asked my son if he was really in the gifted program. About the time another parent clutched her purse when I sat next to her at the school play. About all the little cuts that add up over time. Another woman stood. I'll do it too. My daughter got suspended for defending herself against a bully. A white bully. Guess who got called the aggressor? A man stood. My son gets pulled out of class for random security checks twice a month. His white friends never get checked. Not once. One by one they rose. Story after story. Experience after experience. A tapestry of pain that had been invisible to everyone who didn't want to see it. Marcus listened to all of them. And when the last voice had spoken, he made them a promise. This isn't going to be easy. There will be pushback. There will be people who say we're making too big a deal out of nothing, that we're playing the race card, that we should just be grateful for what we have. They will try to exhaust us. They will try to wait us out. But we're not going to let them. Because this isn't about one school, or one incident, or one security guard who made a bad decision. This is about every child who has ever felt like they don't belong. Every parent who has ever been treated like a threat. Every person who has ever been told that their presence is a problem. He paused, looking at the faces before him. We deserve better. Our children deserve better. And starting now, we're going to demand it. The room erupted in applause. It wasn't victory. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is enough. 6 months passed. 6 months of meetings and trainings and difficult conversations. 6 months of progress reports and setbacks and small victories that felt larger than they were. 6 months of healing for Lily, for the school, for everyone who had been touched by what happened on that October afternoon. Marcus watched it all unfold from a careful distance. He had made a conscious decision early on to step back from the spotlight. The story had taken on a life of its own, think pieces and op-eds and social media debates that raged for weeks before finally subsiding into the background noise of a world that always had a new crisis to focus on. He let others carry that weight. His job was simpler and harder, being a father. Lily had returned to school 2 weeks after the incident. Her first day back, Marcus had walked her to the gate himself, holding her hand, feeling her small fingers tremble in his grip. "What if they're mean again?" she had whispered. "Then you tell me, and I'll handle it." "What if the other kids say things? What kind of things? About what happened? About you? About us?" Marcus had knelt down right there at the gate, not caring who was watching. "Lily, listen to me. Some people are going to talk. That's what people do. But you don't have to carry their words. You don't have to make their opinions your truth. You know who your daddy is. You know who you are. And that's all that matters." She had nodded, not entirely convinced, but brave enough to walk through the gate anyway. That was the thing about Lily. She had her mother's courage. The kind that didn't announce itself, didn't demand recognition, just showed up when it was needed and did what had to be done. The first few weeks were hard. Marcus could see it in the way she came home quieter than usual, in the careful way she talked about her day without really saying anything. But gradually, slowly, the heaviness lifted. She started bringing home art projects again. She talked about her friends, about Ms. Henderson, about the book they were reading in class. She didn't mention the incident. Marcus didn't push. Some wounds heal better when you don't keep examining them. The school, meanwhile, was undergoing its own transformation. Principal Morrison had kept her word. The parent meetings happened, dozens of them stretching over months, each one more difficult than the last. Marcus heard the reports secondhand through David, through Denise Crawford, through the network of parents who had decided to trust the process. The stories that emerged were exactly what Marcus had expected. Years of accumulated slights and dismissals, patterns of behavior that individually seemed minor, but collectively painted a picture of institutional indifference. Black children disciplined more harshly for the same infractions. Brown parents questioned more aggressively at pickup. Assumptions made opportunities denied, potential overlooked. None of it was news to the parents who lived it. But for Morrison, for the faculty, for the board members who had convinced themselves that Preston Academy was different, it was a reckoning. Some of them couldn't handle it. 2 teachers resigned rather than participate in the bias training. A handful of parents pulled their children from the school, citing philosophical differences with the new direction. The local paper ran a story about controversy at Preston Academy, framing the changes as divisive rather than corrective. Marcus ignored all of it. Change was supposed to be uncomfortable. That was how you knew it was real. Gerald completed his training in March. Marcus didn't attend the ceremony. He wasn't sure there even was one, but he heard about it from David. The security guard had gone through 6 months of intensive education workshops on implicit bias, ride-alongs with community organizations, conversations with families who had experienced exactly what Marcus had experienced. The report said he was different now, quieter, more thoughtful. The kind of person who asked questions before making assumptions. Marcus hoped it was true. He had no way of knowing for certain. People were complicated. Change was slow. The same man who wept with remorse one day could slip back into old patterns the next. But he had given Gerald a chance. That was all he could do. What happened next was up to Gerald. Spring arrived, and with it, a letter from the school board. Marcus read it 3 times before he understood what they were asking. They wanted him to speak. At the annual assembly. In front of the entire school, students, parents, faculty, everyone. They wanted him to address what had happened, to talk about the changes that had been made to help the community move forward. His first instinct was to say no. He had avoided the spotlight for 6 months. He had let others tell the story, carry the burden, fight the fights. He had focused on his daughter, his work, his quiet life. The last thing he wanted was to stand on a stage and relive the worst day of his life in front of hundreds of people. But then Lily found the letter. She was reading better now. Ms. Henderson said she was ahead of her grade level, and she had picked it up from the kitchen counter while Marcus was making dinner. "Daddy, what's an assembly?" "It's when the whole school gets together in one place." "Why do they want you to come?" "They want me to talk to everyone." "About what?" Marcus turned off the stove and sat down across from his daughter. "About what happened when you were turning 8. When they wouldn't let me in the gate." Lily's face grew serious. She was 9 now. Her birthday had come and gone with cake and presents and no incidents, but the memory was still there, buried, but not forgotten. "Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. I'm not sure I want to." "Why not?" "Because it's hard, baby. Talking about hard things is hard." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stopped Marcus cold. "Ms. Henderson says that hard things are the most important things to talk about. She says that's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we make sure the bad things don't happen again." Marcus stared at his daughter. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart, Daddy. You just didn't notice." She grinned, and for a moment she looked so much like Michelle that Marcus felt his heart crack open. "You think I should do it?" "I think you should do whatever you want, but if you don't do it, someone else will tell the story, and they might not tell it right." Marcus pulled her into a hug. "Okay," he said into her hair. "Okay, I'll do it." The assembly was scheduled for a Friday afternoon in late April. Marcus spent the week trying to write a speech. He filled notebooks with false starts, deleted documents full of words that didn't sound like him, paced his study at 3 in the morning searching for something true to say. By Thursday night, he had nothing. He was sitting at his desk staring at a blank page when Lily appeared in the doorway. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "No." "Can you?" "No." She padded across the room and climbed into his lap. She was getting too big for this really, but neither of them mentioned it. "What are you working on?" "My speech. For tomorrow." "What does it say?" "Nothing yet." "Why not?" "Because I don't know what to say." Lily leaned her head against his chest. "Just say what's true." "What's true?" "That they hurt you. That they hurt me. That it wasn't fair. And that you didn't give up." She looked up at him with her mother's eyes. "That's a good story, Daddy. People should hear it." Marcus held his daughter close. "You're right," he said. "People should hear it." He stayed up the rest of the night writing. The auditorium was packed. Marcus stood backstage watching through a gap in the curtain as the seats filled up. Students in the front row's youngest, first, their faces bright with the innocent boredom of children who didn't fully understand why they were there. Parents behind them, some curious, some supportive, some clearly skeptical. Faculty along the walls. Principal Morrison in the front row, her hands folded in her lap. And in the third row, center aisle, Lily. She had insisted on sitting with her class, not with him, because she wanted to watch him like everyone else. David appeared at his elbow. "You ready?" "No." "Good. The best speeches come from people who aren't ready." "Is that supposed to be comforting?" "It's supposed to be true." David put a hand on his shoulder. "Marcus, whatever you say out there, it's going to matter. To the kids, to the parents, to everyone who's watching. This is your moment. Don't waste it trying to be perfect. Just be honest." That's what Lily said. Smart kid. She gets it from her mother. The principal took the stage, and the auditorium fell quiet. She gave a brief introduction, thanking the community for coming, acknowledging the difficult year they had all been through, expressing hope for the future. Standard administrative language carefully chosen to offend no one. Then she said his name. "Please welcome Marcus Williams." The applause started slowly building as Marcus walked onto the stage. He reached the podium and looked out at the sea of faces, so many of them young and old, every shade of skin, every kind of family. This was why he had built those buildings. This was why he had funded those scholarships. Not for recognition, not for tax breaks, not for any reason that could be measured in dollars. For this. For these children and their futures. For the possibility that they might grow up in a world slightly better than the one he had inherited. The applause faded. The silence stretched. Marcus cleared his throat. 7 months ago, I came to this school to pick up my daughter. It was her 8th birthday. I was late. I'm always late. Ask anyone who knows me, and I was tired from work, and I was wearing clothes that probably should have been washed a week earlier. But I was here. That's what mattered. I was here for my little girl. He paused, finding Lily's face in the crowd. She was watching him with wide eyes, her hands clasped in front of her. What happened next, most of you have seen. The video went everywhere. Millions of people watched a man be denied entry to a place he had helped build, questioned like a criminal for the crime of being a black father in a hoodie. A murmur rippled through the auditorium. I'm not going to relitigate that day. I'm not going to name names or assign blame or pretend I have all the answers. What I am going to do is tell you what I learned. What I hope all of us can learn together. He gripped the podium, steadying himself. The first thing I learned is that systems matter more than individuals. The security guard who stopped me, he was following protocol. The principal who called the police, she was following protocol. The PTA president who decided I didn't belong, she was following the unwritten rules that had governed this community for years. None of them had to be bad people. They just had to follow a system that was designed, whether intentionally or not, to see people like me as threats. He let that sink in. The second thing I learned is that change is possible, but it's never easy. Over the past 7 months, this school has done hard work. Painful work. Work that forced people to confront assumptions they didn't even know they had. Some people couldn't handle it. They left. But most of you stayed. You listened. You learned. You chose to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. He looked at Morrison, who was wiping her eyes. That took courage. Real courage. The kind that doesn't make headlines but changes the world anyway. He turned back to the crowd. The third thing I learned is the most important. I learned that my daughter is braver than I am. A soft laugh rippled through the auditorium. She walked back into this school 2 weeks after watching her father be humiliated at the gate. She faced kids who whispered about her teachers who didn't know what to say, a whole community that suddenly knew her name for all the wrong reasons. And she did it without complaint, without anger, without letting what happened define her. His voice caught. When I asked her how she did it, you know what she said. She said, "Daddy, you told me I don't have to carry their words, so I don't." 8 years old, and she understood something it took me 37 years to learn. He found Lily's face again. She was crying now. Silent tears streaming down her cheeks, but she was also smiling. "Baby girl, I am so proud of you. Everything I do, everything I build, everything I fight for, it's all for you. You are the best thing I have ever done with my life, and no security guard, no protocol, no broken system will ever change that." The applause came suddenly, a wave of sound that crashed over the auditorium. Marcus let it wash over him, let it fill the spaces that had been empty for so long. When it finally subsided, he continued. "I want to talk to the students for a minute. The kids. Because you're the reason we're all here. You're the reason any of this matters." He stepped out from behind the podium, walking to the edge of the stage. "Some of you look like me. Some of you don't. Some of you come from families with money. Some of you are here on scholarships. Some of you have 2 parents at home. Some of you have 1. Some of you have none." He crouched down, getting closer to their level. "But here's what I want you to remember. None of that determines your worth. None of that decides what you can become. The color of your skin, the size of your house, the job your parents have, those are circumstances. They're starting points. They're not finish lines." He pointed to the science building visible through the auditorium windows. "I grew up in a neighborhood where people said kids like me didn't go to college. I went to college. They said kids like me didn't start businesses. I started a business. They said kids like me didn't build buildings or fund scholarships or change systems. I did all of that. Not because I was special, because I refused to believe the stories they told about me." He stood up. "You're going to hear those stories too. All of you. The world is going to tell you who you are, what you're capable of, where you belong. And sometimes the people telling those stories will be well-meaning. They'll think they're protecting you, guiding you, helping you be realistic." His voice hardened. "Don't listen. Don't believe them. Write your own story. Every single day, with every choice you make, write your own story. Because nobody else gets to decide who you become. That power belongs to you. It has always belonged to you. And don't let anyone take it away." The auditorium was silent now. Even the youngest children seemed to understand that something important was happening. Marcus walked back to the podium for his final words. 7 months ago, I stood at that gate, and I made a choice. I could have left. I could have come back another day dressed better, prepared to prove myself. I could have swallowed my dignity and accepted that the system was bigger than me. But I didn't. I stayed. I stood my ground. Not because I was angry, although I was, but because my daughter was watching. And I wanted her to see that her father believed he belonged, that he knew he belonged, that no uniform, no badge, no protocol could take that from him. He looked out at the crowd one final time. That's the lesson. Not that the system changed, although it did. Not that the people responsible were held accountable, although they were. The lesson is simpler than that. The lesson is that you have to believe in yourself before anyone else will. You have to know your worth before you can demand it be recognized. You have to stand your ground even when everyone is telling you to move. He paused. My name is Marcus Williams. I am a black man. I am a single father. I am a construction worker's son, and a scholarship kid, and a self-made businessman. I built part of this school with my own money because I believed every child deserves a chance to become who they were meant to be. And 7 months ago at that gate, I learned that belief isn't enough. You have to fight for it. Every day. Forever. He stepped back from the podium. Thank you for letting me tell my story. Now go write yours. The applause that followed was different from before. It wasn't polite acknowledgement or sympathetic support. It was something deeper. A recognition that a truth had been spoken. A wound had been named. A healing had begun. Marcus walked off the stage without looking back. Backstage, David was waiting with tears in his eyes. He stopped, shook his head, tried again. That was everything it needed to be. It was Lily's idea, the ending. She told me to tell them to write their own story. That kid is going to run the world someday. God help us all. They laughed, the tension breaking, the weight of the moment finally releasing. Then a small voice called out, "Daddy!" Marcus turned to find Lily running toward him, her teacher trailing helplessly behind. She launched herself at him, and he caught her, lifting her up even though she was definitely too big now. "You did it," she said. "You told the story, right? You think so? I know so." Everyone was crying, even Jeremy Mitchell, and he never cries about anything. Well, if Jeremy Mitchell cried, it must have been good. "Daddy." "Yes, baby. I'm really proud of you." Marcus held his daughter tight, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, feeling the warmth of her small body, feeling everything he had built and everything he had fought for wrapped up in this single perfect moment. "I'm proud of you too, Lily. More than you'll ever know." They walked out of the auditorium together, father and daughter, into the spring sunshine. The gate was open. It had been open for months now, the security protocols revised, the systems updated, the culture slowly shifting towards something better. But Marcus stopped anyway, right at the threshold, looking at the place where everything had changed. "Daddy? Why did you stop? Just remembering." Remembering what? He thought about that day. The hand on his chest. The demand for ID. The handcuffs that never closed. The system voice saying his name. His daughter at the window crying, calling for him. Remembering that this is where I learned the most important lesson of my life. What lesson? Marcus looked down at his daughter, at her curious eyes, at the future she represented. That standing your ground isn't about winning. It's about refusing to disappear. It's about being present, being seen, being counted, even when everyone is telling you to go away. Because the moment you disappear is the moment you lose. The moment you stop believing you belong is the moment they're right about you. He took her hand. You belong everywhere, Lily. Everywhere you want to be. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. She squeezed his fingers. I won't, Daddy. I promise. They walked through the gate together into the world that was waiting for them. Behind them, the school stood quiet, the auditorium empty, the echo of applause fading into memory. But the words remained, written not on paper or stone, but on the hearts of every child who had heard them, every parent who had wept, every person who had recognized in Marcus's story a piece of their own. True power doesn't come from money or position or the authority to fire people on the spot. True power comes from knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone tell you otherwise. Marcus Williams had learned that lesson at a gate on his daughter's birthday in front of the whole world. And now the whole world knew it too. The clothes don't make the father, the love does. And his love had his daughter's name written on every line.